This journey began with a core difficulty. That difficulty was a statement in Bamidbar 32:33 that Moshe Rabbeinu allocated to Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain, and part of Shevet Menashe, Ben Yosef, a section of land in Ever HaYarden on the east side of the Jordan. The difficulty raised by most of the Parshanim is the sudden introduction of Shevet Menashe into this arrangement in light of the fact that they seem to have been not party to the original request in the opening Pasukim of this Perek. We touched upon the position of the Ramban in his attempt to reconcile the conflict between the two Pasukim, and he argues that Mitchila lo ba'u lefanav Shevet Menashe, that at first Shevet Menashe did not approach Moshe. It was only after the negotiations and Moshe began to actually allocate land to the two tribes. He realized that there was an imbalance between the area of land that the two tribes would receive relative to that of the remaining 10 tribes, and therefore he requested that other tribes join Reuven and Gad on the east side of the Jordan, and part of Shevet Menashe took up the offer. Hence, with respect to the actual allocation, after the negotiations, Shevet Menashe is mentioned in Pasuk Lamed Gimel. The Ramban then offers an alternative approach, and that was that from the very outset, just as Bnei Reuven and Bnei Gad had large herds of cattle, so too the tribe of Menashe. They were, in theory, part of the original request, but keeping in mind that Menashe was one half of Shevet Yosef, the numbers were far fewer than that of Gad and Reuven, and therefore could only take a minor role in this request, and hence they are not recorded until the actual allocation takes place. There is a caveat to the Ramban's attempt at reconciling the Pasukim, and that is, he writes, Ulai, perhaps, Anshe Mikneh Hayu. They, the tribe of Menashe, had a degree of expertise as herdsmen. The caveat being that, from the standpoint of the Ramban, this is speculation, to which he cannot vouch any certainty based upon the texts. CHIZKUNI brings a very different set of assumptions to the text, and in addressing the conflict between Pasuk 33 and Pasuk 1, writes, B'nei Menashe lo sha'alu lahem nachala be'eretz Sichon ve'og, rak b'nei Reuven ve'Gad sha'alu. B'nei Menashe were never part of the original plan, as suggested by the Ramban, but were arbitrarily allocated land on both sides of the Jordan, as was the case with the other 9 tribes. Goral, a mystical lottery, is the term used by the text. Not once, but 5 times in Sefer Bamidbar, which will play nicely into the position adopted by the CHIZKUNI, drawn from statements made in the Bereshit Rabbah, employing the concept of Midah Keneged Midah, a concept that is grounded in the world of Sod, the Kabbalah, that filtered down into midrashic material in the form of remez. In Bereshit 44:13, we are told that when the goblet was discovered in the sack of Binyamin, the immediate response of the 11 brothers was Vayikru'u Simlotam. They tore Kriya as a sign of mourning. Medrash applies the concept of Midah Keneged Midah, in that the unfolding of the events in Bereshit 44 was somewhat of a payback to events recorded in Bereshit 37, where after the brothers returned with the blood-soaked Ketonet HaPasim belonging to Yosef, Vayikra Yaakov Simlotav. Yaakov also tore Kriya, and the Medrash suggests a link between these two events, that because of the unnecessary pain that the brothers brought to their father, they in return were exposed to circumstances that caused unnecessary pain to them. The Medrash goes on to then indicate how Yosef, Binyamin, and Menashe, all 3 participants in the anguish that the brothers had to endure, were also Midah Keneged Midah, required to undertake a Kriya, not to them, but to their descendants. Yehoshua, a descendant of Shevet Yosef, tore Kriya. Mordechai, a descendant of Binyamin, tore Kriya. And then we have Menashe, ben Yosef. Menashe garam lishvatim likroa. Menashe was a cause for the brothers to tear Kriya. Unfortunately, the Medrash does not pinpoint the basis for this assertion. Lefikach, therefore, the Medrash goes on to write, Nitkara'a nechlato chetzia be'eretz hayarden v'chetzia be'eretz Canaan. The allocation to Menashe that came about, according to the text, through a mystical goral, a lottery, was also symbolically ripped apart, where half the tribe were providentially settled in Eretz HaYarden, Chutz La'aretz, v'chetzia be'eretz Canaan, while the other half had the zechut to settle in Eretz Israel proper. This is the approach that the CHIZKUNI takes to the introduction of Chatzi Shevet Menashe ben Yosef in Pasuk 33, that this came as a Midah Keneged Midah response, controlled by God. The upshot of all of this is that what we have here is conflicting views within the Medrash with respect to the allocation to Shevet Menashe on the east side of the Jordan. In Bamidbar Rabbah, in explaining the symbolism of the two oxen, that it reflected the allocation to Menashe of land on both sides of the Jordan, it would appear that this allocation was a positive. From the Bereshit Rabbah, however, the presence of Menashe on the east side of the Jordan coming as a Midah Keneged Midah payback, going back to events 250 years earlier, it appears that the allocation was deemed to be negative. It is this conflict within the Medrashim that the Rebbe in the SICHAH now attempts to reconcile, which we shall look at in part 3 of this series.